Welcome back. The organized labor movement is planning to hold a protest on the state of the nation. The protest is to call the attention of the government to the country's deteriorating security situation, the lingering strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, and the unending energy crisis. Speaking at two separate conferences in Abuja, the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Mr. Ayuba Waba, and the president of the National Union of Local Government Employees, NOGE, Mr. Ambali Olatunji, decried the worsening security situation in the country and asked the government to act. For 4 months and running, the children of the poor have remained at home, Mr. Waba had said. Today, as we speak, diesel is selling for more than 800 naira per litre. There is no way this situation can be allowed to continue. So I think there is an urgency in addressing this issue. End of quote. Well, this is our talking point right now. What's your reaction to the fact that they're talking about going on a day strike? And you know they've talked about going on strike severally, and sometimes they ended up not embarking on the strike. So what's your thought?
3 things quickly. One, I am of the opinion that that generation that used strike protests to achieve quite a lot do not want to understand that what worked for them back then can't work now. And I'll tell you why. Most of the guys that ensured that these strike actions worked then are actually in government. The likes of Fayemi, the likes of Tinubu himself. There were quite a lot of people that were influential back then when we were growing up. They are sure more or less that once you hear there's going to be a strike, even government is shaking and trying to look into how to answer. But all of these guys, most of those guys have penetrated the government and they are in charge. And they know the secrets of ensuring that strikes actions do not make any mark. And that's why they were not in government during Jonathan's time, and that was why there was a complete shutdown. But most of these guys are in government right now, and they know the right buttons to press. So I'm expecting those that are not in government to think beyond protests. So
what should they be doing?
Good. Most of them, one of the reasons why it looks as if they protest on the streets and government calls them to the table and people who join them in the protest sees them as sellouts is because most of them don't even have the facts. Look at the guy talking about 800 naira per litre for diesel. Diesel has been, there has been deregulation on diesel long ago. It's PMS that we're talking about. So government even had no control on the price of petrol. So imagine people going to the price of diesel rather. Imagine people taking his speech and getting violent about it, not knowing, and they now get to the table to negotiate and find out that this is actually out of government's hands. Then they leave such meetings aggrieved, feeling like they couldn't do anything, feeling frustrated.
When you say this is outside government hands, we look at the fact that there are fundamental issues which if government had actually addressed, we won't be where we are.
True. I agree with you. Government is a continuum, and irrespective of decisions made by previous administration, government has to take a stand. Except there are clauses that make some of those decisions
cast in stone.
Yes, that they can now look for legal means to sort. But once it's binding, there's little to how government can take steps. Irrespective. A very good instance is these prepaid meters. There were issues when Fashola was minister for power. Except for that's a top senior lawyer. And you have to tell us when some of those clauses will probably be overcome. So, but someone will see him as a failure then, someone who didn't actually look into all of it. Now, these were agreements by previous governments. There were traps. Now, I'm not trying to justify the present administration. I just pity whoever is coming in 2023, honestly, because these guys with these strikes will force this government, this administration to make certain promises and agreements that it's the next administration
that will find it difficult.
Yeah. When those ones cannot meet up, these ones will, because they want to take the pressure off and we're in election period and so that they can have votes.
Are you saying that the things that these people are requesting for aren't some good enough or something?
Quite a few of them. I don't. If I were a minister for labor, for instance,
the UTAS and all. and then some other entitlements and all that.
Exactly. You can't tell me I can't have a system, a software to pay you working for me, and you telling me that you want to build yours and I should just do the paying. When some of us, I'm a lecturer too. When some of us that are young in this lecturing business are looking for more opportunities, but some of these people hold down these opportunities in 2, 3, 4 universities, get money from all of that, but they know some of these things will open up. Whereas job opportunities will come for several young people.
They were talking about the IPs. They were saying things like some of their members weren't getting the payment due them. I think one of them gave I think that was this example of maybe you're supposed to be paid 340,000 and you get an alert of 34,000 naira. I mean, those were some of the issues that they raised, some of their concerns. Are you saying that those concerns are actually futility or something?
Those concerns are things they can table and will be sorted. It does not give birth to them developing their own system. You don't throw a baby and the bathwater away, especially when you are dealing with your employer. And now they want to. Some of us understand the no pay no work kind of deal. They've been on strike, and once they resume, they still want to be paid for all of those months. Who does that? And they're still at the forefront of complaining that this country is not moving. See, it's a pity we're looking into also out of all of the issues. Probably because I'm in the educational sector. But honestly, I'm hoping that Nigeria finds a courageous leader that will actually look at this Olede in charge of JAMB. If we find someone like that in charge of a Ministry of Education, some of them will run away. Because this is someone that's been in the system. He was former VC. I'm hoping that the next administration will have round pegs in round holes. You see some of these guys that are screaming and shouting, most of them will travel.
Let's
look at this. I mean, the talks of an industrial action for a day, a protest, and all of that. How effective has it been in time past in terms of changing, the goalpost to get the desired result? Because if Labour is saying they want to go for a day protest, it's just a day. It will probably not have, effect. Even the NSAS, which was a massive movement, over, probably the largest in the last 10 years in Nigeria, to a large extent, that those who still think it did not have the desired result, as much as, SAS was, disbanded, that we had SWAT, which was just like a change in nomenclature. In terms of police brutality, that has not really reduced. That's according to the pulse of the people. Now, that's just an illustration. So, looking at the planned one-day protest in law, how much of an effect, or how much of an impact, rather, do you think that will have in, making the federal government solve some of these issues, either from the energy crisis down to ASUU that we've just talked about?
Thank you for that question, and I'll be very frank with you. No effect, and I'll tell you why. Democracy allows you to have your say and allow some other people to have their way. But if you want to have your way, you have to understand the game and know how to play it. How many of them are lobbying senators and House of Reps to pass bills that can change certain decisions in the long term? But they're on the road. These are lobbying the House of Representatives. Some of these I've attended several roundtable talks before the House of Representatives or the Senate actually go into passing bills. Once the bill passes first or second reading, they try to do town hall meetings. How many of them attend? How many? We can't continue to do the same thing the same way and expect different results. Not even in this present administration. I'm very angry because I turned 40 this year, and I looked at how well we've seen some of this same set of people do certain things, and we now see most of them in government. We expected that several things will change because they now have the opportunity to influence things, but it still remains the same. So they can't continue to stay on the streets. How many of them and the funny thing about this ASUU stuff, so many state universities are already pulling out. Very interesting. With time, they will call for protest and nobody will answer until they begin to understand that they have to start putting top people that they can trust to lobby or to be in government. That's you can't solve a problem.
Are you trying to absolve the government of any wrongdoing?
I'm
in all of
not.
this?
I'm not trying to absolve the government. That's not what I mean actually. But I just feel most times if you can want to get street validation for a problem. I know a lot of some of these activists that are cash activists. You know, they have affiliations with several NGOs abroad, and when they come to the street, they get paid for doing all of these things. They feel like they are helping the country. But some of us know they cash out from all of these things. But the masses see them as helping. And now that those that led protests back then are involved in government, they understand that these guys are just cashing out. You expect them to give them attention. They work. Look at how they walks out of meetings with them. Because these guys understand how these guys cash out.
So how do we solve issues?
Simple. One, they need to get down to work. You need to understand government's point of view. Show that you agree with them that there is a problem. Then show them how you think this problem. It's not enough to come and shout about the problem. Fine. How do we do things about? How do we solve these problems? Yes. Bring solutions. If you ask them, take for instance, I'm very aware that the scarcity of PMS is due to the price of diesel, for instance, right now. Tankers, the logistics for them to move from Lagos to other states, they don't want to, the owners don't want to increase the budget, and it's getting more difficult. But someone will come to protest that they're not having access to PMS, whereas that's not even the issue. So some of these activists, quote unquote, who are at the forefront of leading some of these are not cerebral enough to solve the problems. That's what I mean. So we need once government see that so person is out, they know, oh, that guy is out because he has a solution. Let's call him to the table. These are the problems. Recommend. I don't know, maybe you get what I'm trying to say. Enough of having people who can just shout.
Okay,
Mr. I fish out now.
Looking at it now, I mean, as you said, a day's protest won't change anything
at all.
You know,
with
the government. I mean, NSAS was about 2 weeks, and we still have police brutalities being recorded across the nation. So, how do we sort out not just the energy crisis or the ASUU, but issues we have basically from different quarters?
Even security.
Even security. But let's even just zone it down to issues of power, energy, as well as, education. ASUU strike, and it's not only ASUU, you have ASUU, you have different, SANU, NASO, and all. But how do we address these issues? Because if protests won't solve it, and incessant industrial action by these unions, ASUU and the rest of them, won't solve these issues as well, how do we solve these issues going forward?
Great question. 5 things. 1, join a political party. I'm disappointed that Labour NLC, TUC that has the structure for the Labour Party aren't doing anything about it. It's always a cash out moment. Once they find a presidential candidate that has money and flips cash at them, they just tell all their members, imaginary members and structures to vote in that regard. Until they begin to, if Labour begins to sponsor candidates to the House of Rep and Senate, and I expected the likes of Shehu Sani from Kaduna, who didn't make it in PDP. To get the Labour ticket. They should be begging people like that. That guy is cerebral, but he does not have money to throw at them. His own principles will not even throw money at them. So you see, some of these people that we see that do they even want the problem solved? There are certain people that are making money from Nigeria's problems. So number 1, they should, as they have a political party, they should push the right people to the decision making. That's number 2. Labour should be at the forefront of engaging aspirants. It is not, once Labour says we are going to have a presidential debate and these are the issues we want to talk about, any candidate that do not attend the debate, we're not talking about the TV station organizing, there are little repercussions to you get what I'm trying to. But when Labour comes all out and say, see, we have the masses, we have the civil service, if you do not attend to debate these issues, we will ensure that we campaign against you, and people will sit up. You think such people will attend such debate and not sit, but you don't participate. Then when these guys are in government and money has changed, and then you want to come and shout and protest, who does that? That's number 2. Number 3, what do I expect? I've talked about political participation. I've talked about the political debate. Engaging the aspirants. Number 3 solution again is that they must now. There's a difference between politicking and governance.
Okay.
These guys are not involved in the politicking, but they want to criticize those that are involved in governance. So point two is looking at them getting involved in politicking. Now they also have to get involved in governance. How will, for instance, NMA had an election and they broke each other's head. Now you now want to hold political office holders accountable when you yourself are you're not even above board in your dealings. On governance, you're scoring 0, but you want to come out to say big English to us because you think you're wearing the title. Who cares about that? Politicians wouldn't even listen to them. So there's a need for them to be governable before they can even try to demand for accountability from people who are office holders, government office holders. So I've said they should look into politicking, look into governance. How did I don't want to talk about the last NBA election and how Akpata. No, some of this information are everywhere, and these same people wants to do press release to caution politicians who. No, it's not done. So if we really want solutions, which I don't think they want, it's to be very sincere. I'm very close to most of them. And another thing Nigerian youths must understand is some of these guys drink beer together. So forget you see them on the street, and in the next hours in the night they are all taking beer and discussing. Oh, we saw what you were shouting about, and what's the effect? Number 4, solution: our educational sector. If we don't produce, we are doing more of producing dummies who just cram answers, memorize answers, and pass exams and can't use their initiative. And that's why, that audience, that age group, they are not demanding the right thing. They're not pressuring. The likes of those in governance and government today are those that in their 20s, in their early 30s, they were highly cerebral. Wow. But our education system has been drafted to make people dependent on what they were taught. And when guys can't think for themselves at that age, at 20s, at 30s, we have people who finish school and become dependent on whatever system they find themselves. So, but they know they wouldn't do that because they understand that that's the way to free the mindset of Nigerians. So I'm expecting, in the long term, I'm expecting an overhaul of the educational system. How will you be studying computer science and they're still teaching you Fortran 77? How will you be a graduate of computer science and you can't even operate the computer? How do you expect so? I'm angry. But you see all these people paying lip service as if they want to solve problems. They really don't want it solved. I wouldn't lie to you. Or how will you expect that some people who import generators want the power sector to change? The last but not the least is the fact that we must understand that if we don't get it right as a family, family is the core unit of every nation. Is the core unit of every society. All those boys on the streets is because their fathers are not doing their responsibilities. It's because their mothers are not doing their responsibilities. Those guys will vandalize the train tracks. Those guys will do anything to ensure they feed because the family as a unit is not doing well. So if we can solve these 5 things, we'll get a better country.
Well,
Thank you very much.
This is a good place to end it. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.